And welcome to the Cowbell Kingdom Road Reaction Post-Game Show. I'm Jonathan Santiago. With me is James Ham, and the Sacramento Kings getting their season-high 7-game road trip off to a good start. They get a 116-102 victory over the Milwaukee Bucks tonight. James, there are some issues with the stats. We actually had the great Daryl Arata email me or text message me a printout of the box score from the arena taken by Chris Clark there, because for whatever reason they're having some issues at the Bradley Center. So there's some issues with the box score around the internet. You're not able to get an accurate statistical count of what happened during the game unless you have a hookup like us. But Kings coming out with a good victory to start off this road trip.
Yeah, John, this is what they needed. Milwaukee's not a good team. Actually, they're a horrible team, and I'm not quite sure. I'm not quite sure why they are as bad as they are. I like some of their pieces. They've had some injury issues and stuff, but this wasn't a good effort at all from the Bucks. They folded up shop pretty quick. Kings got on them, and then they got really chippy. And it's like, if you're going to get chippy, why not get chippy early and at least get yourself in the game? I think we'll see a suspension out of Ilyasova for Pop and Reggie Evans. We had this shocking Isaiah Thomas ejection where he just wouldn't stop talking and got tossed from the game. It's a very, very strange game. And it's the typical game that we've seen so far this season where, the big three all go for 20 or more. I think the Kings are 6-3 on the season when Isaiah Thomas, Rudy Gay, and DeMarcus Cousins all go for 20. But you had a nice game out of Ray McCallum, a nice game out of Reggie Evans. This team is starting to get a little bit of momentum. I think that they've won. They're 5-4 in their last 9, something like that. So even though they've had a 3-game losing streak tucked in there, they've actually had some success, and I think we're going to see a little bit more success on this road trip.
All right, let's move on to our 3 things to watch here. Can the Kings bring consistent effort to the defensive side of the floor? And looking at the final numbers here for this game, you see that the Bucks wind up shooting just 43.9% from the field and 35.3% from three-point distance. So hey, that's not bad. I mean, the Kings are able to limit them below 45% shooting for the game, the Milwaukee Bucks, and come away with the 14-point victory. Now, granted, the Bucks did score over 100 points, but at the same time, the Kings outscored them by 14 points. So not bad defensive effort, I think.
Yeah, the pace of this game kind of dictated that the score would be a little bit higher. I mean, neither of these teams are known as defensive stalwarts. They're not great at anything on the defensive end, except for Milwaukee has a lot of shot blockers, a lot of bigs that can do some damage. I like the effort that the Kings put forth. Again, coming back to Ray McCallum, I think he's really solidified sort of the backup 1 and the backup 2 position. He's giving them honest to goodness minutes where it's not just offensive outbursts, but he's giving you some solid defensive effort. We had a decent night out of Ben McLemore. That's sort of been the issue, not on the offensive side, but on the defensive side. He wasn't nearly as bad as he has been in certain games this season. So overall, pretty solid effort, John.
All right, moving on to point number 2 now. The Kings, can they control their turnovers or limit their turnovers? Tonight they had 9. Rudy Gay with 5 turnovers tonight. DeMarcus Cousins and Isaiah Thomas, who have been kind of the major culprits in the Kings' turnover woes, at least lately, those 2 combined for just 4 of the Kings' 9 turnovers. And 7 points off turnovers for the Bucks. So tonight the Kings did a good job. In fact, they got off, if I can recall, in the first half, they got off to a very good start moving the basketball and getting assists, starting with Rudy Gay making plays for his teammates. But the assist-to-turnover ratio was good tonight for the Sacramento Kings.
Yeah, 21-9. This team shared the ball. I know even they were even moving the ball to Jason Thompson early on. I know he had 8 points early. This game was kind of odd where certain players seemed to just take over moments and have like a burst, and then they would go to a different player, and that player would take off and have a burst. So I thought that this was a good overall team effort. No one stats like truly jump off the page, but definitely a better effort than what we've seen over the last couple of games, especially with the turnovers. Again, 21-9 turnover to assist to turnover ratio. That's something that the Kings haven't really done much at all in the last, I don't know, month and a half.
All right, moving on to our last point now, the health of Carl Landry. Carl Landry did not play again tonight. His fourth straight game missed due to injury. He has a sore right knee. Did not practice the other day, but Michael Malone did tell reporters yesterday at practice that Landry would be traveling with the team. As everyone who was watching the telecast did see, Landry was on the bench but in a suit, so he did not play again. As I mentioned, fourth game that he missed due to this sore right knee. Overall, he's missed 42 games this season if you count the 38 games he missed to start the year with the torn left hip flexor that he suffered in training camp. So realistically, James, this has been, for his homecoming, his Kings homecoming this year, returning back to the team after leaving a couple of years ago, it has not been a very healthy comeback for Carl Landry here in Sacramento.
Yeah, it's been a disaster, John. I mean, he's averaging something like, I don't know, 4 points and 3 rebounds a game. He's only played 18 total games, and even those 18, he's like Hopalong Cassidy. I mean, the dude just has no legs at all this season. I don't even know what to make of it. It's strange to me that he's got a left hip flexor and now a right knee issue. I'm not sure what we're going to see out of Carl Landry the rest of the way out. I'm not going to be surprised if we see any breaking news on him in the next 24 hours. This is one of those injuries that, at what point do you need Carl Landry the rest of the way out? And I know people want to see him play alongside these other guys, but, everyone knows what Carl Landry brings when he's healthy. And what we've learned is that you really need a healthy Carl Landry or you're not going to get anything out of him. I wish the guy the best. I'm surprised he's on the road. I know he wanted to go to Milwaukee because that's his hometown. But at some point, I think a decision is going to have to be made on Landry, and I think it's coming sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and on a related note, James, some news breaking during the game. Royce White is coming to the Sacramento Kings. He will apparently be signed by the Kings to a 10-day contract and will be joining the Reno Bighorns. They do have a stretch here over the next 6 days where they play 4 games at home in Reno. So that could possibly be a sign of things to come in regards to Carl Landry. We do know that Royce White is a power forward. So he may be a guy who gets a look if Carl Landry doesn't get to finish out the rest of the season.
Yeah, we've talked about Royce White a little bit in the past. My point of view on Royce White is that he's sort of a duplicate piece. He's not, I understand giving someone a shot. He was the 14th pick in the draft, I think it was. I like the ball skills that he has. I know one of the things that Pete D'Alessandro has told us in the past is that he really wants to improve playmaking at every position. He wants guys who can actually, produce for their teammates, that can make their teammates better at every position. And Royce White, he's a .4. He's a very rare breed. His game really reminds me a little bit of Anthony Mason from the Knicks and the Hornets and God knows where else he played.
The Bucks.
He reminds me of that sort of high basketball IQ, but again, he's got a lot of issues. And from what I can tell from my conversations, Royce White is not getting a 10-day contract with the Sacramento Kings to play with the Kings. He's getting a 10-day tryout so they can send him to Reno, get a little bit of time to watch him, as opposed to just having the Reno Bighorns sign him to a contract and letting him play straight in Reno. This way, if he does succeed, if he does bust out and he does look solid, the Kings can you either give him a second 10-day or they can bring him back, send him. Here's the problem. They could send him out on the road where they're already playing on their 7-game road trip, except for you can't send Royce White out on the road because he won't fly. So that's going to be an issue, and I mean it's sort of the thing that's holding this guy back from even getting a shot. He's never played an actual NBA regular season game in his career, and I'm not sure that that's going to change. But good for the Kings for giving this kid a shot. He does have talent, and Reno is very close to Sacramento, so the Kings brass is definitely going to be up in Reno, checking this kid out over the next few days, giving him a good solid look. We're already seeing that Joel Abelson has done some really solid things with Ray McCallum, and so why not? Why not give it a shot short term, especially in Reno? I don't think this works in Sacramento right now, but in Reno maybe it does.
All right, we'll have more on that, obviously, on Cowboy Kingdom, so follow us for updates on the Royce White situation with the Sacramento Kings. But back to this game, James, player of the game, who do you got? I mean, you could go with DeMarcus Cousins, I believe his 36 or 37 double-double of the season, 21 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists. Rudy Gay was really good. I thought, in that first half, it's really when the Kings started to run away with things in the second quarter. I thought Rudy Gay was doing a really good job of playmaking, making plays for his teammates. He finishes with 5 assists, 22 points on 8 of 16 shooting. Isaiah Thomas, he got ejected from the game, 2 technical fouls, which is uncharacteristic of Isaiah, but he finishes with 25 points and 6 assists. But I'll go with Rudy Gay in this one just because I like that. He seemed to set the tempo, in my opinion, for their good passing and ball movement tonight.
You know what, John? I'm going to go a completely different way. I'm going to give it up to the rookie. The Sacramento Kings have had a difficult time at the shooting guard position all season long. They've had no consistency at all. I thought Ray McCallum came in and instantly buried 2 3-pointers and just looked strong. And he played great defense. And overall, I thought that he brought something that the Kings they're not getting anywhere else. And that is like a level-headed, calm, meticulous, methodical player to play the shooting guard position, and a little bit of 1, a little bit of 2. He's a guy who really seems to have learned how to slow the game down. It's something that we've been waiting for Ben McLemore to do all season long. He's playing so out of control. Even tonight, he finishes with 4 points. He only takes 5 shots. But just, again, 1 assist. You're just not getting any, 2 rebounds. He's not even stuffing the stat box. And McCallum comes in and just gives you a solid effort. And not to say that he's going to Isaiah Thomas, Ben McLemore, as in the way that Isaiah Thomas, sort of popped up out of nowhere and stole Jimmer Fredette's spot. But hey, this guy's bringing it every night, and there's just a calm and a coolness to his game that it comes from being a coach's son. It comes from doing the drills a million times. But we're starting to see the little stuff. He can take somebody off the dribble. He can hit the wide open 3, which is nice. Kings don't really have that guy who just will set shot from the perimeter. And then we even saw him, draw and hop up and, hit a little follow-away 18-foot jumper. I think he's got a lot of skill, and especially on the defensive end, is something that he stands out to me as the guy who was a difference maker in this game.
Yeah, for those, on a related note, James, for those who are concerned about Ben McLemore and, you kind of hear the under-the-breath jokes about, oh, look, why not just trade all the first-round picks for second-round picks because the Kings keep hitting in the second round as opposed to the first round with Jimmer, Thomas Robinson, and Ben McLemore. I wouldn't put Ben in that boat yet. Remember, between these two guys, Ray McCallum is the more experienced of the two. He spent more time in college than Ben. Ben only played 1 year of college basketball. He redshirted at Kansas his first year. Ray McCallum came and played a couple of seasons under his father at the University of Detroit with the Titans there. So even though both these guys are rookies, Ray McCallum is an older rookie who has more basketball experience than Ben, who is incredibly raw at this point. So Ray is getting an opportunity, and he's really starting to thrive. And tonight really did like what he did offensively. Obviously, finishing 15 points, 7 of 10 shooting. He's really struggled with the jump shot. In his stint here late in the season, but tonight he had it going, and he had his parents in the house, so that had to be a positive for him.
Yeah, John, he's just polished, and I would like to say I feel bad for Ben McLemore, but it was his decision to come out as early as he did, and we've seen this time and time again where guys come out and you hope that they develop, but the fact is he's only a year younger than Ray McCallum. Ray McCallum played 3 years at Detroit Mercy, and he came out after his junior year, and he's only a year older than McLemore. So it's going to take a lot for Ben to get where McLemore is where McCallum is right now, and it's just going to take a while. And I don't know that we're going to see Ben McLemore get to where he needs to be until he's like 24, 25 years old. So we're talking about 3 or 4 seasons. And in the meantime, we'll get some highlight dunks. We'll get some quality play here and there. But what we're really seeing is an erratic player who is just very green and needs so much work. And if the Kings hope to make a substantial move next year, they need to know that sort of McLemore is the answer, and he's proving on a nightly basis that as of right now he's not the answer. So I like what Ray McCallum brings. He reminds me a little bit of a slightly more athletic Eric Snow, and that's something that if a lot of people see a little bit of Allen Iverson in Isaiah Thomas, and what made Iverson so good was that he had Eric Snow alongside him the entire time. I could see this being sort of a marriage that works really, really well. 2 ball handlers, 2 guys that can do a lot of things, but one guy who's primarily a scorer and the other guy who can do, doesn't need the ball in his hands all the time. He can play defense. He can do other things. So I think this is a good find, again, for the Sacramento Kings in the second round.
All right, the Sacramento Kings coming away with a 116-102 victory over the Milwaukee Bucks. They'll continue their 7-game road trip onto game number 2 Friday. The return of Rudy Gay, Quincy Acey, and Aaron Gray to Toronto, taking on some familiar faces in Chuck Hayes, John Salmons, Patrick Patterson, and Gravis Vasquez, and the Toronto Raptors. So join us immediately following that game as the Kings take on the Toronto Raptors north of the border. So that's going to do it for this edition of the Road Reaction postgame show. Again, it's a final. The Sacramento Kings coming away with a 116-102 victory over the Milwaukee Bucks. Join us on Friday after the Kings take on the Bucks. For James Ham, I'm Jonathan Santiago. You've been watching the Cowbell Kingdom Road Reaction postgame show.